want to start this by thanking everybody that came on for us this season. I'm really excited. It's a great group of people, and I can't thank you enough. So just from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for being with us for the next 6 weeks.
Does that mean we're stuck?
You are stuck. That's what all that paperwork was for.
God damn it.
What was with the non-disclosure? That was really sketchy.
Don't worry about that. Don't.
And I don't understand.
You're not supposed to disclose that.
I don't know why I needed to send such personal pictures. Considering
I know. I was going to ask the same thing.
It's for HR. It's an HR thing. Okay. We have 2 returning players. Of course, everybody remembers Sornar and Sergio. They are now Hans and Kiefer. But we actually do. Yes, Hans. If you went with that accent, I will punish you. So next week is going to be the punishment.
Punish him or punish all of us?
Yes.
Oh no.
Yeah.
It's a good thing he was saving all of his good rolls for that encounter.
Right. So now we have 3 new players. So we have Lucian, we have Ellie, and of course we have Galaxia. I wanted to start with the new 3. What's a good word for you guys?
The 3 amigos?
The newbies.
The newbies. I would like to start with the newbies. So go ahead and just, how'd you guys get started into tabletop RPGs? Was D&D your first one, or have you played other games? Anybody can start. Just go ahead when you're ready.
So we're not stepping all over each other. I'll just go first. So I've been doing RPGs and D&D since a long time ago, and I like RPGs since I played Might and Magic on a Commodore 64 when I was much, much younger. Yeah. So yeah, I've been doing this for quite some time. Like I told you when I first got in here, I've been playing D&D since first edition. So it's been first through second through third through now 5e. So it's just been a lot of fun getting back into it with the new 5e rules. So I'm enjoying myself, just not from player aspect, but this as well, Theo. I DM my own sessions as well.
Yeah, you're a very good DM, and I do enjoy your games. Unfortunately, I'm so busy I can't be part of them.
Well, no, and it's good because you know how I roll, and I'm pretty relaxed and easygoing. I go with the flow, so I'm able to flip the tables at any point in time, which was fun for me earlier as a noble. And then there's 2 different ways I could play it, and I was playing it just enough to be enough of a dick, but not too much of a dick.
I did enjoy your rendition of the noble. I was very worried about starting everybody off not as their characters. And I was like, I don't know how this is going to go, but I think it turned out pretty well. I think everybody got into the spirit of things. It's like you had no information to go off as everybody just like knocked it out of the park. I was like, yay, good job.
And remember, kids at home, it was the noble's fault what happened in the throne room.
Yep.
Sure enough, it must have been the spit in the water which made him turn into a monster. That's what it was.
That's what
I'm not gonna lie. Like as soon as that happened, I was like, man, I should have just taken the reins and left his ass. This is my fault.
So the other part of it that so far so good is the companionship between myself and Ellie. It seems to be going off pretty good so far. So I like the fact that we built our character backgrounds around each other. So it's working well so far.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that I wanted to change from the first season was get more involved in the people's backstories. The first season was kind of just like, all right, well, here's the world, build your characters, let me know about it, and I'll say yes or no. The first season was very rough. I just want to polish it, and then I'm hoping that each season is a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. And I think that's what you're supposed to strive for anyways.
So that's why I stress backgrounds for my campaigns, because it just makes it easier for the DM to kind of roll with the punches and just create some really good character storylines to help people kind of get really into the role play. So that's a real huge help to campaigns like this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to pass the torch off to someone else.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay, well, I could go along with that. I started tabletoping actually, it was probably like early college, late high school or so with a bunch of friends. And we literally played, somebody's room was basically their parents' basement. So it's just the perfect spot for, we had about maybe 8 players in one game. And it takes a while to go through sometimes, but we had some really good chemistry and really it was a great intro with a lot of good friends. And so I've done several different campaigns in the year. I've noticed that my characters seem to evolve. I started with like roguish characters and now I'm doing a druid. So I'm just kind of trying different types of characters, and it also helps kind of utilize different parts of your own personality. So I like exploring the different things. My last campaign was in Pathfinder with a bunch of friends nearby. So this is kind of just getting back to D&D.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were talking a little bit before we started. You were talking about a boar. It's like, yeah, this is my animal companion. I know last week when we talked, I was like, yeah, animal companion, cool, woo! Like I think we all made a joke like, since you're a halfling, it's like, can you ride it? It's like you have to have an animal companion only if you can ride it. And then I was like,
but that's not D&D.
Yeah. Well, we were
Pathfinder.
talking. Yeah, we were talking. I was like, I don't actually remember druids having animal companions. And then you're like, oh no, yeah, I don't have one. Never mind. Scrap the project.
Okay.
Like that happened like 5 minutes before we started. We started recording. The first.
But I will
the
say,
first time.
I suggest if you do play Pathfinder, and I think D&D has it too, where you get the animal companion, definitely go for a Velociraptor. It's a lot of fun.
So the last time I had an animal companion, I was playing a druid in 3.5, and I had a lion. That was like the best thing ever.
I don't believe you're telling the truth.
I think he's lying.
There's like 4 movies saying why having a Velociraptor as a companion is a terrible idea.
Oh, we had a great time. But here's another thing too. I was animal companion and I was given a dog. And at one point my character, being a druid, had like the strength was so low, the dog was better than me in battle. Wow. But I got 3 turns. I got to fight things with the dog and with the Velociraptor. You just shred things to pieces with those.
I did this build, and I didn't do it for myself. I did it for another player, and they were like, just like, I don't know how to play a druid. I think, I'm worried about doing a druid. I was like, okay, well, what kind of druid do you want to be? And like, literally, like her first words was, I want to be a crazy cat lady. I just want to have a bunch of cats and just like throw them at people. I was like, okay, then we're doing Circle of the Shepherd. And then I started doing the math because we were like playing like at 10th level or something like that. And I was like, by the math, like if you do this one spell and cast it at your maximum, you can summon 16 cats.
And they're all going to hack and slash.
And well, so they have 16 cats. Now they don't have like a huge like attack bonus, but because of Circle of the Shepherd, like they get extra bonuses to attacks, and all their attacks are magical. So it turned out to be like they have like you have 16 attacks in one round. I was like, that's absolutely ridiculous. And I was like, okay, I'm going to show you how to do it, but you're not allowed to do it. That would take forever.
Oh God.
Yeah.
That's the things that I see in my nightmares. 16 cats just coming at you.
That's my dreams.
So Pathfinder is a very interesting game. I have not played too much of it. I do know that it got started when 3.5 was like at its ending point, and then 4th edition showed up, and not a lot of people enjoyed.
I don't think we talk about 4th edition.
We don't
talk about that. No.
Well, I did love like Galaxia's players. Like, yeah, I played 1st edition, 2nd edition, 3rd, and now we're playing 5th. Like, totally skipped over that. So I was like, it's kind of taboo in the D&D world in most circles.
I remember that D&D technically 4 was almost like D&D 3.5, but like you already said, it wasn't really great. So when they redid it in the 5, it made it better. But there was things in 5 I wish they would have carried over from 3. And it was just a little bit from one of my campaigns is like the whole profession things. They did away with professions. Like if those of you remember blacksmith or weaponsmith or armor person, leather workers, they kind of got away from that in 5. But I kind of recreated it in one of my own little campaigns that was started off with when I was doing my own crafting tables for characters to be able to craft their own things.
And last season, during the segment Midgaming, we actually talked a little bit about like, things that we want to see in like the next edition, in like 6th edition or beyond. And I would really like to have more skills. And I know why they did it the way they did, but bring back crafting skills. I did love the ability to create your own magic items. And they have done supplements where like, okay, here's kind of the way you do it. But like in 3.5, like these, like here's a list of things. You need to be able to have this level of spell. You need to have this amount of XP. You need to be able to do this, this, and this, and then you can create the magic item. You're like, yay! So,
yeah. which is why I know you weren't all the way in it, but I did. That's why I created my own little crafting, and the way I crafted it was pretty good.
Yeah,
with percentages and rolling and the different types of weapons you could make. They were non-magical, but you could still. But if those of you who remember old school Diablo, when you had weapons of low quality or superior or I went in with that type of concept with the crafting.
It was a lot of fun from what I did. I really wish my artificer character didn't die in the first session because I was like, oh, I'm going to be a crafter. I'm going to make all the stuff. And he died. Like, it wasn't like just like he died. He died. Like, everything went wrong. Like, he went down to 0. I rolled I think a 1 on my first roll, a 2 on my second roll. And then like, I was rushed over to like the person that could maybe resurrect me, and then like you rolled a like really low number, and at that point it was just basically like, yeah, that character's just dead. Nobody wants him alive. Like, it was like I was like, and then I remember you looked at me. You're like, I'm so sorry. I was like, it happens. I mean, it's a character.
You never want to kill someone's character for sure.
You never want to, but it does happen.
I have.
You want to kill people's characters?
You know, in one of the last sessions, you were talking about different characters that, like, just infamous players in your games. We had one in my Pathfinder game, actually, where she would randomly generate a horse into the room, just anywhere. Just horse there now. So I would be okay with. Actually, no, she did die, and we were all like, "Oh no!"
You're sad, but not too sad.
Oh, not really.
I've had DMs that like have seriously like every time you bring an animal companion, he didn't want to deal with the animal companion. Like, he didn't want to deal with like it could be anything.
Why?
Like, if he didn't want to deal with the animal companion, so he would like send everything after the animal companion first. So what we did, we just had a bunch of animal companions. And then basically we'd have like one turn where we wouldn't get hit, and we just overran his encounters. We learned how to break the game that way.
Okay.
So, anyways, moving on from that morbid thought, is there anything else you want to talk about there, Ellie?
Not right now. I think I'm
okay. Then we'll go ahead and move on to Lucian.
I got started in D&D back in '94. I've been playing since Red Box. I've tried all the iterations.
Wow.
Dabbled into Palladium Games, World of Darkness. If there's a role-playing game about it, including GURPS, I have played it and or ran it.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of good times, lots of silly rules here and there. Yeah, I happen to think that Pathfinder came about because we had 3 and then 3.5, and then someone looked ahead and said, what's that? Yeah, Pathfinder, yeah, over here. Don't look over there, for when 4 was coming around the bend.
Like, I don't know, like, have you noticed, has any of the players actually noticed that, like, you know that they're going to change the game? Like, it's like always the last supplement that they put out. In 3.5, it was like, I think it was like Legend of like the 5 Swords or the 7 Swords or something like that. And it was basically a beta test of 4th edition. So like everybody that played it, like, I believe they saw what was coming. They're like, I don't want to do this.
My personal opinion is 4 was basically, they tried to soften it all down to try to attract the WoW crowd and World of Warcraft into D&D, and it really irritated all their faithful. But right around that time, if I'm not mistaken, they came out with a Diablo Roll20 game, a bunch of different little things around there. And thankfully, it bounced back with 5th edition. I love 5th, with a few little tweaks that could really carry.
I do absolutely love what they've done with 5th edition. I wish that was the edition we got instead of 4th edition.
That's why I'd like to introduce, like, I'm really big in the mechanics of the game myself, so that's why I like things like crafting tables, or for those of you who have heard of it, it's called deity points. And for those of you who are not familiar with deity points, is when you start, like back in 3 and 3.5, you had a deity that you believed in, you could perform certain acts to gain what was called divinity points, and then you could use them as like a prayer to your God, like an oh my God, we need a holy prayer to save us from this almost dying, and it'd be like your one chance to ask your deity for a favor.
And it was still not as powerful as Thaco.
True.
Yeah, I really do wonder, like, Kiefer, like, are you adamant for Thaco to come back, or are you just like memeing it up at this point? I'm not sure either way.
I just like the concept of Thaco. I don't like the practice of Thaco because
you commit blasphemy.
Just talking about Thaco even though it's not as complicated as it seems, but whenever you're explaining it, you know the meme with Charlie, and he has like all from Always Sunny, and he has like his board where he's like, okay, let me explain this to you.
Yeah.
That's how I feel when, you know, I'm like, oh yeah. And then back in the day in D&D, there used to be a thing called THAC0, and you're like, and someone asks undoubtedly, what's THAC0? And you're like, well, it's the
how much time do you have?
Yeah,
that's not true.
That is
2-hit armor
100%.
class 0. It's all in the name.
There's positives and negatives, and then, you know, you have to take that and you have a pop, and yeah, it's just a fun thing to talk about D&D to make you feel really nerdy.
It should really be the password to a nerd fan club.
So actually, that's actually a funny thing. I'm on a bunch of different Facebook groups for like Dungeons and Dragons and DMs and things like that, and it is just a beautiful grenade. Like all you have to type in is like, "Hey, what's THAC0?" And then like the entire group will blow up. Like everybody will just start arguing. But the best part about it is you can do that every single week. And it's the same people yelling at each other.
You're just sitting back like, my work here is done.
You get bored. It's like, hey, you're like, I don't have anything to do for the next 2 hours. Go in the group. What's THAC0? Oh,
this is why we can't have nice things.
Yeah,
It's
That's one of the things I like about what they did from, you know, the THAC0 days to now, is that they simplified it and made it easier.
they simplified a lot of stuff. One of the things that I really, really, really would like to get rid of is the alignment chart. That's the thing that I really wish that they just do without.
Or modify it on how to make more alignments, or more.
I think the alignment chart is good. I mean,
right now.
I think the alignment chart is good. I mean, that you still need to have the alignments at some point, and it's all about it. Really, but the whole purpose of the alignment is your way to develop your character into the personality of how you want to play your character. So it kind of builds into it because there's always that thought process. If you're lawful and neutral, you're lawful to a point, but then you're like, well, do I really want to break this law? If it's not a right law, then maybe I will, because I'm lawful and neutral.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, back in the day, the whole alignment thing was just a stick for the DM to beat you over the head with. Like, oh, you're a paladin? Oh, that's super cool. Oh, was that not a lawful move? You lose your powers.
I think it does. It does, like, having the alignment chart definitely does, like, make you think about how to play the character. Like, I mentioned about how I have evolved my characters. A lot of my early ones were chaotic good. Like, anything I was playing was just chaotic good, because it was just so easy to play for me. Anything I said it was good, it's good.
Shameless plug.
Yeah. But as I've wanted to evolve in my character playing and stuff, so that's where my good neutral, to me, that's harder to play. So that's where I'm going into that.
So Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons & Dragons just recently made an announcement that they're going to be making modifications to all their books about that they're not going to have evil races anymore because of the racism that's behind that and stuff like that. And so instead of it being that, you know, every single drow is born super evil, or goblins or whatever having these evil races, you're still going to have, you know, there are groups that are evil, but the way that you were born is not necessarily evil. And I think
like
that
society.
Yeah.
So like, I
feel
like it. I definitely feel like it should be, and that's good and all. I think what gets me is the people that like take alignments to like an extreme level.
Correct.
And another group that I play in, they were in a Yuan-Ti city, and in my world, the Yuan-Ti are not inherently evil. They have an entirely different culture.
It sounds familiar.
Yeah. And so, but like the paladin, he walks up and goes, "I detect evil," and it's like, all right, well, you don't sense anything. And he's like, "Oh, that's bull," because like I'm around Yuan-Ti. He's like, "Yeah, they're not evil. They're not evil people. Like they have free will. Like if a demon shows up, like to me, a demon is evil.
That's why my trouser snake got detected.
Yeah. So something like a demon, like it will eat your face today. It will eat your face 100 years from now. But like a person with free will can change its mind. The races that have free will, I don't think should stick too closely to an alignment chart, where the races without free will, like the Fae, demons, celestials, those kind of things, the alignment chart would mean more to them than it would to like us personally.
And another thing that I think is that the alignment chart, especially if you're playing a character for long periods of time, it limits growth and development, because not saying all the time, but sometimes when people go, okay, I'm lawful good, they think I always have to be lawful good. But I mean, events in life can make you turn to evil or good or whatever morality it is, then you change and evolve throughout your lifetime, and same with characters.
I think, there's a misconception. I mean, evil characters are, like you said, I agree. And just like mine, I always enjoy drows and half-orcs, and they're considered evil, but just because they're evil doesn't mean that they'll always commit evil acts. Now, is it more likely they will commit an evil act? Probably. But it's also, as soon as you're in a group and everyone's good and they detect the evil, it's like, we have to kill our own party member because he's evil. I'm like, but I didn't do anything evil, technically.
And that has happened. I mean, and like I said, for me, it's the people that just take it way too far. It's like the rogue. It's like the person that plays a rogue. And I was like, why did you do that? And it's like, well, my character is chaotic neutral. It's like, that's not a reason. That's not a reason to act upon something. You're just being a dick at this point.
I think my favorite story was a player, saying, I'm going to go stand in this cave. And we were just like, why? And he's like, because it's dark and I'm evil. And we were like, that has got to be the dumbest thing I have ever heard anyone say in the history of my player history.
Anybody see like the Justice League show?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, while.
I mean, it's been a while, but like that reminded me of the time that Flash and Lex Luthor traded bodies. And
I have no idea who this is.
Yeah, well, Lex Luthor picked I can figure out who the Flash is. Takes off the mask, like, yeah, I have no idea who this is. and the Flash was in the bathroom, like freaking out. It's like, oh god, be calm. And then like he walks out, and the guy's like, hey, are you going to wash your hands? He goes, no, because I'm evil, and walks off. And the villain was like looking at Lex Luthor, like, ew.
That's disgusting.
So, like, yeah.
That's a perfect example.
It is the perfect example of why you should not play your alignment. You should play your character.
Right. We have so many stories about people doing dumb things based on their alignment. Like, especially in crucial moments, like stealing from the party when there are guards that are watching over everybody. And you're like, why did you decide to do this? We're in public. We're not even in private.
Yeah.
Wild card.
Yeah. That's what I'm getting at when I say that the alignments should probably be taken. Like, it shouldn't be a hard rule. It should be just for character development. It's like, okay, well, my character started off as, and that's a good basis to start off with, but it should not be a reason why your character does the things that they do.
It's a mindset.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why, Christy, I've been trying to help you with build your character around. That's why I like the whole deity background for a character. I'm good at it because I play clerics a lot. I've done paladins a lot. So it really, the way I like to tie into background is just based off my deity and where they come from. And it really gives a good backstory.
Yeah. I kind of like the fact that Ellie is kind of shy and doesn't know what she's doing, and like kind of like in this brand new world. I do like the way it might be a little bit that you're nervous because you've never done this before, doing it on a podcast, and like we're all new to this anyways. But like just when you were speaking through your character, I was like, oh man, she's like nervous as hell. But your character seemed like your character was nervous, and I was like, well, that's really cool role playing. I enjoy that.
A little bit of both. I actually did want the character to be kind of nervous, and so I guess that just organically worked.
And she had a trusty companion she could rely on to help her, so that the between the two of us, it worked out well. Our back and forth and our trading off, like she said earlier, like we really dwelled pretty well together.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about making monsters. What are some of the things that you have a problem with? What are some of the things that you like about it? I just want to open the board real quick to just get everybody's like opinions on if you never made a monster before, that's totally fine. You can still chime in. So we'll just go down the board. Galaxy, do you have any like experience making monsters for 5e or for any of the editions?
I've never personally made a monster myself, but I would find it, it can be fun because you can make up something that is pretty unique. The trick would probably be trying to make it not too difficult, but difficult at the same time. So you're not trying to overpower the party, but at the same time, you want to make it challenging.
Hans, have you had any experience making monsters?
Yeah, I have a couple. Of monsters that I've made myself. I tried the challenge I had was trying to make player characters into monsters because you have to make it so they don't have player stats, and it's like the conversion was kind of awkward for me.
Why'd you do that?
I had a character in a previous game that belonged to me, and I had a new group of players, and I wanted them to have an enemy, based off of that character. I had a dragonborn paladin of conquest, and I wanted to basically make him into an oathbreaker. But I didn't want him to have player stats, because if they'd gone up against a character with player stats, it makes the game really complicated and almost one-sided if you don't do it correctly. And I wanted them to have, like you said, have that challenge of it being possible to beat them, but not making it so difficult that nobody's having any kind of fun. If that makes any sense.
Why didn't you try to just make that character like an NPC, like any other, like an evil NPC? But it'd be similar, same type of thing, except for instead of being a monster, he's just an NPC you have to defeat.
I guess like my thought process going into it was it was my first time doing it, and I wasn't exactly sure how to go about it. So all I did was like take away some abilities while keeping some. Like I wanted him to have his weapon abilities, but like some of his abilities, like a class ability, dealing with that as a player is really, really like, it's good when you're the one doing it, but if you're going up against whatever enemy that could be, it's not exactly fun. And I learned that the hard way. They were like, this is ridiculous. I killed like 4 out of the 5 players, and I was like, this didn't go the way I thought it should go. So I kind of stuck strictly to, using monsters in the monster manual after that until I could figure it out.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing. Like I know I've done it in my campaign, like having certain creatures or monsters or even like casters. It's a fine line because you're trying to use that character to not try to kill everyone, but at the same time you have to try to play it from their perspective, from that character's perspective, like casting spells and so forth. Because the characters are powerful too, so they're casting their own spells. So they're launching fireballs, and your character's like, well, I have this evoker here. He's capable of launching fireballs, so let me launch my own little fireball and see how it all pans out.
I like it. Lucian, Kiefer, do you guys have any knowledge about monster making?
Yeah, so I've been DMing for a bit now, and there have been times where I've seen something cool in media or in a video game or something like that. I'm like, I want that in my game, and I can't find something that's just like it in D&D, but I can find something similar. And what I'll do is I'll tweak the stats around in order to make it what I am trying to emulate or whatever. But there have been other times where I've had to create something from scratch, and I've done it mostly with 3.5, which is a whole monster in itself. But with 5th edition, I have been able to use D&D Beyond and use their templates and makers and stuff like that. It makes things much, much easier for calculating stuff.
Actually, not a sponsor, by the way.
Yeah, not sponsored. That's actually kind of interesting because I don't use that program. So monster making for me is, I guess, a little bit challenging because there's not a lot of information in the books. And so I go off of online sources, and I reskin a lot of the things that I do. I do wish that Wizards of the Coast would put out like a manual of like monster making, like a Frankenstein kind of to it. This is how you make monsters.
Yeah, like you just posted in Discord, like, yeah, there's homebrew stuff you can do. And the DM guide in 5e does give you some basic things you can do to create your own monster. It does give you a little. It may not give you everything, but it does give you a little bit of basics.
I'm a huge fan of reskinning, and then like I take like aspects of monsters, put it together. So like the monster that you guys faced in the Dunes of Akal, the angler, was a modified. It was a modified aboleth.
Yeah, and I love dealing with the rules lawyers on that. Like, I had a campaign that was fighting zombies in a drain, and the zombies were across the room, and they're like, "Oh, it's fine. Zombies can only move this amount of space." And I was like, "No, these are fast zombies." And they got them very quick, and they're like, "That's not how zombies work." And I'm like, "That's how dream zombies work."
And you can't really get too much more removed from reality. You're in a role-playing game against fictitious creatures inside a dream.
Can I ask a quick question to you guys? Since you guys are way more experienced as DMs,
Sure.
have you guys ever had a monster that something simple like a flaming skull? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
And you ever have your players take an out-of-the-box approach to that monster?
Yeah.
Always to be expected is whenever you're creating something, you have to prepare for what the unknown, because player characters, especially people who have played for a while, will always do something out of the box. And sometimes you can create special abilities that the players may not anticipate. It's just finding that fine line of not trying to make the creature too easy, but also just trying to find it where it's still fun to fight it, where it's not too overpowering.
5e, I find it's quite harder having one monster versus like a horde of monsters. When you're building like a big monster for someone to fight or for like a group of people to fight, the action economy is absolutely hard to deal with. That's why I guess they gave us things like legendary actions and legendary resistances.
I find it's kind of cool with some of the creatures like that, because you do have those special abilities and you can choose to use them to your benefit, which I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So like one of the abilities that I didn't get to use was the lore itself. So like 3 times a day, the creature has the ability to lore, which means that if you failed your wisdom saving throw, you couldn't take any reactions, and your only action is moving towards the lure. And then doing that, it's legendary action. It was like a soul drain. It would drain 3d6 points of health from you and then heal itself for that same amount. I was like, I really want to use this ability. And then like everybody's like, all right, well, I got a 20 to my save. I was like, God. So
it's actually really funny because I like when you did that to me, my modifier for my wisdom save is 0.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow. So
yeah,
I was like, it's really saved my butt there.
I was so trying to pull it off, and I was like, oh, it didn't. So like it didn't work, but at the same time, I don't think the monster felt any less threatening. The fact that it couldn't do that.
Yeah, and sometimes you like I had a campaign the other night, and it was more like they're close to hell. So they're fighting demons and devils and so forth, and it's more like they're powerful, but they're and as you sit there and watch your characters try to overpower your creatures, like, okay, what else can I throw at them to make it a little bit more challenging, so it's not so easy for them to walk through? I think that's the one thing DMs have to try and keep in mind is like, what else can I throw at them to kind of make it a little bit more challenging, but not make it overpowering?
I think you guys did a very good job with that encounter. I think, personally, for me, I feel like it was fairly well balanced. The creature didn't have a crazy armor class, but it was high enough where like not everybody was hitting it, and its attacks were like it didn't one shot everybody, but if it hit you multiple times, you definitely felt it. Right, Mr. 5 out of 68.
I'm not metagaming here, but if I had to say on a scale of 1 to 60, I'm about a 5.
That was like the best line. I love it.
You should totally clip that and use that as a tagline in the intro.
I will do that. We do opening bits, and so like I'm definitely doing that. Like I'm not metagaming here, but
The other night, I threw like 3 different groups of enemies at my players, and they got through it, but it was not easy. And they were all, by the time it was said all and done, they were all tapped out of their resources. They were like, yeah, we absolutely need long rest. They burned through all their spells, burned through all their special abilities. I mean, it was kind of fun for them, and it was kind of fun for myself, because it was more like, even though it was challenging and it was pushed them to the brink, I think that's part of the game that makes it really good for the players and DM, is to really feel that stress of like, because a couple players like, man, I was stressed.
Yeah, that was a thing. Like in the last series, nobody would take a long rest. It was like, all right, we'll just power through it. We'll just go through it. I was like, are you sure? Like it's like, no, we're totally fine. And then like after I think the fight of the dragon, they're all like, okay, yes, now we need to relax because that was hard. That was really bad.
That's all, and that's how you can do it as a DM. Is you just press. Okay, if you're not going to take the long rest, I'm going to press some more stuff at you and see how you hold up, and then that player's like, maybe we should took that long rest like a while back.
Yeah, I definitely have been in games where like we kept fighting, and then like, okay, we reached the end. All right, well, let's relax a little bit, and then like as soon as we exit the dungeon, there's another encounter. It's like, oh, you know what? Probably shouldn't have taken a breather a little bit. So
it makes random encounters kind of fun to do.
Yeah.
Conversely to that point, I remember one campaign I played in, it was a pre-made Curse of Strahd. And without giving any spoilers, we were taking advantage of the long rest mechanics. You know, we didn't need long rest, but we were taking them. And as a method to punish us and get us back on track, one of the major plot hooks, the DM decided to kind of move it around a bit to be like, oh, you get there, but this isn't there anymore. If you would have gone when you got the information, it would have happened, but they had time to clear the place out and there's nothing left. And it's like, oh, damn.
It's kind of unique how, these modules, whatever you get, whatever campaign you run, even if it's a homebrew, you have that capability of changing things around to make it, either suffer the consequences or give them a reward.
That does bring up another point. Has anybody heard of the variant rule of like the grit? So like a short rest is 8 hours long, where a long rest is like a month long.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's in the Dungeon Master's Guide. I can't remember the page off the top of my head, but there's a variant rule in 5th edition where instead of like a long rest is 8 hours, a long rest is actually a month long. Like okay, we're gonna just take off. We're not gonna do anything.
There's no way I would want to do that month. That month.
I realize you could take a leave of absence. That's wow.
That's a hibernation.
Yeah. I think it's supposed to bring some type of realism. Like, you just got into a fight, you're like down to 1 HP. Like, how badly is your body? And then like you're miraculously healed overnight. So it definitely adds like another layer to the game. I feel like that would be more for like one shots or like if you're trying to do like a high realism game.
Hold on, you guys don't miraculously heal overnight?
So I know that all Canadians are Wolverine, but down here in America, we do not.
Well, it kind of goes part and parcel with the free healthcare. It kind of seems like you're Wolverine sometimes.
All right, that's a thing. We appreciate you hoarding over your free healthcare. So does anybody have any questions? Has there been a question on anybody's mind since we last played? Or is there anything that you guys want to talk about while we're on the podcast?
Yeah, why do you keep hitting me?
Why do I personally keep hitting you?
That's 2 major encounters in a row when I started like right next to the bad guy and ended up getting some severe hurt put on me.
I think the question is like, why do you keep getting next to the bad guy if you don't want to get hit?
I was going to say the same thing. Maybe you should start taking a cue from the ranger and just stand back and wait for things to happen. And then you won't be so close to the bad guy.
Yeah, but that leaves Captain Hot to Trot all alone up there. I feel bad.
Well, I'm on the road. My job isn't to stay in. My job is to get in, do my damage, and get the hell out.
I think Captain Hot to Trot is Kiefer because Trot, it's a playoff of.
Correct, yes.
He's a horse.
Again, that comes into how you play your character. So again, I know I've played Rangers before, so I know I'm not going to get close up if I don't have to. So if I can stay back in the fray, then I don't want to get up close in the front. Not that I can't, I just don't want to.
Yeah, and I realize that my build is a little bit blasty, but I also like the stalwart, I'm between you and my friends sort of thing.
Story-wise should always be part of how you build your character. If you want to,
for sure,
if you want to play a Star Wars character, that's fine. But then you can't complain about getting hit, especially if you're fighting a creature that only thinks with its stomach. Like, you were the nearest one there. It's going to attack you. Like, that's how that works.
Fine if you want to, but just let us know so we can buy you some cheese.
Wow.
So I really liked what you did with your magic item. At the start of every game, they get a magic item that they can pick from. And it's really interesting figuring out what you guys went ahead and chose. It's always interesting, and I really do like some of the selections. Some people like go, it's like obvious, okay, I'll just get a magic weapon. And then some people get really creative, and I think that you used the Staff of the Python in a very interesting way to avoid this creature. It's just like, I'm going to just chuck it over there. It's going to distract it, and I'm going to get the hell out of Dodge.
Actually, I was just going to say, full disclosure, I got some inspiration there, and I'm like, darn, what do we have that's heavier than I have a colossal snake that comes out of nowhere.
Fired someone. I didn't even get inspiration out of that.
No, I got the inspiration. Dun-dun-dun.
I figured that. I didn't want to assume that, but that's like I was like, well, let me see if I can throw this rock, and maybe if I can draw it over here, then it'll pop up over here. So I'm glad it worked out the way it did.
That was a very good idea. I did like that a lot. One of the things I love about this game is like the players will always come up with something that I don't think about, because I didn't think about that at all. They're like, it's coming for you. It's like, all right, well, we're going to throw rocks and distract it. I was like, I would never have thought of that. Or like, I didn't think about that while I was creating this monster. And I like it. We're going to go with it.
Anybody here not old enough to know the movie Tremors? Because I feel like we kind of cheated that one.
Yeah. There's kind of man. Yeah, that was kind of fun.
I didn't get the idea from Tremors when I made this creature. My inspiration actually came from the Breath of the Wild game, the sand,
nice.
the big sandfish. But then I was like, but I wanted to make it like more of an ambusher. So then I was like, it's a really creepy, nasty little creature. It's like those big angler fish that live at the bottom of the world.
I still remember that scene from Finding Nemo. Oh, look at the light. I'm going to get you. And then whenever the big reveal, and I'm like, that's horrifying.
It's terrifying. Like,
one of the thought processes I had after the fact was more like, had I thought about it sooner, I probably would have tried it. It would have been like, maybe before they approached the lantern, would it be like to shoot like an arrow at the base of the lantern just to see if there was anything there. And then I don't know if that would have triggered the creature or not, because then we would have saw it ahead of time. But it still was kind of cool that it just happened the way it did.
The creature had tremor sense, so that kind of impact, I feel in my heart of hearts that it would have activated. It's not a highly intelligent creature, but like the entire time you guys were walking up to it, I was like clenching my fists, like, oh my god, they're gonna get close, they're getting closer. I was like, here it comes.
During your description of the big reveal, the lantern shifts, and then there's this tooth-filled maw. I'm sitting there like, he mimicked us, session 2?
I also thought mimic initially.
We hadn't even shown our greedy side yet, and you mimicked us?
No, I didn't mimic you. I anglered you. And I even the genie said the word angler. I'm like, oh, what's that? And then like you saw the lantern. I was like, oh, they're not putting 2 and 2 together.
I totally saw it coming, but
did you?
But Kiefer is a very
don't lie
straightforward. I face my problems straight on, so it's gonna be, ooh, this is a problem. I go up to it, and then of course he would be immediately entranced by the shiny.
Whenever he said, oh yeah, watch out for the angler, I was remembering a monster. I don't know if it made the transition to 5th, but I believe it was called a lurker, which was the cave-dwelling, long-limbed ambusher. So that's what I had in my mind. So when you're like, oh, there's a light there, I'm like, okay, maybe I'm wrong. And then as soon as you did the reveal, I'm like, the anglerfish, after I got past my mimic shock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, because I think it's fun too, just as a DM, just to try to set something up, and you're just so hoping that it works out the way you planned it out to be. And when it does, if you're like in the background going, yes, it worked.
Like the fact that you guys can't see me, like this is all recorded, so you guys can't see me, so you can't see my face. Like my face would have given it away instantly. It's like, oh, here they go. So
and that happened with my campaign that I've been running with Baldur's Gate Descent to Avernus, and they had discovered a shield, and the shield was there's actually, spoiler alert, is a hidden demon inside, but they don't realize it. And then demon started turning one of the characters, and I was like, it started working perfectly with not just his background story, but then how I was fishing it to him, and he was buying into it. I'm like, yes, this is working.
That's one of the trade-offs I find in doing this virtually, is on one hand, we can't see you direct message or private message our party members for all of your shenanigans. Like, it's not like you're like, hey, nerd, come into the kitchen. We need to talk. But on the other hand,
by the way, just so y'all know, nerd is part of my handle. He wasn't just talking generally every nerd.
No, it's wired nerd, right?
That is correct.
Maybe a little bit of both, but yes, I was referring to your handle, wired nerd. But on the other hand, you also can't just absentmindedly or ominously pick up dice and start randomly rolling, making us go, what's happening? Like you lose it, you get something, you lose something.
As a DM, one of my favorite things is just to randomly ask the players, so what's your AC at?
My favorite question is like, hey, what's your hit points at? And they're like, oh, it's this. I was like, not anymore. So it's one of my favorite things to do.
I think one of the best ones is, sorry. So what's the marching order? Who's out front?
Yeah.
Night when they were approaching the dead body, and I was like, well, who's going up there? And of course, when he approached the body a little bit closer, something bad happened, and he's like, oh yeah, you said that. It's like, I kind of thought about it. It's like, and then you still did it anyway. So it kind of works out one way or the other.
There's a lot of fun playing the game, but there's this like amazing feeling that I think only DMs get. It's like, here's a surprise.
And then the surprise actually goes the way it was designed. But sometimes it doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes and then you're like, okay, well, that didn't go as I planned it. But then you can always ad-lib it and then make it seem like it was something that happened but wasn't intentional to happen, but it happened anyways.
The one thing that definitely I think a lot of new time DMs need to understand would be that the players don't know what you're doing. And if you act like it was all part of the plan, they will 100% believe it's like, oh, okay, you planned it that way. It's like, yes, I did.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah. If there's one advice that I can give to anybody that's looking to DM a game, Dungeons and Dragons, or any tabletop, is like, don't get too far into your plans. If you have an idea, run with it. But if it blows up in your face, it is not the end of the world. The players will come up with some crazy idea that works, and you're like, what the
and many times it ends up being way better than what you had planned.
Yeah, and just run with it. Don't get upset. Don't get frustrated at the players. It worked exactly how it was because the players had a good time, and that's what's really important. But then you turn those nasty little things on them, and then you're like, ha, 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 it works.
Yeah, I like to sometimes where you can just ad-lib as you kind of go. And the DM's guy that tells you you should do that, just don't overdo it. Like, if it fits within the storyline, you can spin the tail a little bit to make it part of the story, and the players don't really notice it so much, then it's definitely fun for everyone.
Then you get players that get hung up on inconsequential things. Like I played in Wired Nerds session there about a month ago, and we spent 15 minutes talking about how to take this town when he just finally had enough to drive the plot forward and, not stymie our session. He's like, yeah, okay, so you get the impression that this is not important and you should carry on with what else is going on.
I ran into that. Now, for doing Sunday nights, everything is structured. Like from start, I have 6 sessions to end the story. But for like an open-ended campaign, like the one that Kiefer is playing and Tuesday nights, they have spent hours doing something. I was like, it doesn't matter. Move on. Like you were supposed to be they were going to ask you a couple questions. You were answering the questions, and then the story was going to move on. But no, somebody, not going to say who to protect the innocent, but somebody decided that they were going to make a giant show of them, and it lasted the entire session. I was like, I wrote this as a 10-minute sketch, and it took 2 hours.
You should just confirm for me that it's Kiefer, because otherwise I'm just assuming it.
I'm not going to confirm or deny anything.
When you have time, I would love to talk to you on the adventures of Trip. But
they have been thrown out of nearly every town that they've been in.
Consistency is the only attribute that is not an asset if you're a complete screw up.
Oh no, I'm doing exactly what I want to do.
That's the thing that you have to keep in mind is like, yeah, you want to keep the story going, but it does help when characters just play their characters and play out the way, even though it doesn't go exactly the way you want it to, but it makes it more enjoyable. Now, if it gets a little bit crazy, you got to kind of just get you back on track.
But I would say that to this player's credit, they do know when to step back and let the other players shine. For the times that person is center stage, it is a marvelous and miraculous roller coaster, and I do have a lot of fun every single session.
So what'd you do, Trip?
Anyways, we have come towards the end, so we will pick this up next week.